Hey guys, how's it going? It's late at night. It's about 1 a.m. Central Time. And while most of you are probably asleep, which is fine, you guys can watch it tomorrow when you wake up. I'm not asleep right now. Instead, I'm thinking about 2020, election 2020, this China virus, and the state of affairs in our country, the United States of America. As Ben Franklin said, our republic, if we can keep it. And I watched a great video just a couple days ago, and this is on my friend's channel. The channel's name is Tap, Rack, and Roll, and I'll put a link to that down in the description when I'm done. And she did a terrific job on that video. I shared it on my social media, and if you haven't watched it yet, I suggest you go over to that video, watch it, and share it too. And she's just exposing all of the voter fraud, the sham, these machines. It's called Dominion. I mean, this is literally something out of a science fiction movie, except for this movie is supposed to be our reality. Some actually call it the new normal. And this is 2020. And the whole world's been turned upside down, and this country's been turned upside down. Now, this country's been going downhill for a long time. I get it. And there's still many things to be proud of in this country throughout the past couple centuries, and even today. But at the same time, I'm watching things change so quickly over people getting sick. And no doubt people really are getting sick, and every life lost is tragic. But we still have a country to run, and we still have elections, or we were supposed to have had an election. And I'm not sure what I just saw, but it didn't look like much of an election to me. With all of the now provable fraud, irregularities, things that were hidden, software of the Democrats, of China, other countries. So what I'm going to do in this video is just talk a little bit about how we got here and how the media is trying to trick you and think that we're in unprecedented times and that it's brand new that we have a virus and that we have a plague and that we have an epidemic. And they're trying to make us think that this is all completely normal. They're talking about now a great reset. Some call it New World Order, communism, Marxism. It's called many things. But it ain't right and it ain't America. And here's what I want to talk about briefly tonight. I'll be as brief as I can. I don't know how long I'll be on. If you get tired, I understand. Go to bed. You can watch it tomorrow. But I don't really want to go to sleep right now when I'm starting to put two and two together. And while 1984 said, how many fingers am I holding up? And he was holding up 4, but tortured him until he finally said 3. I'm still right now going to say 2 + 2 = 4, regardless of what Joe Biden says, regardless of what AOC +3 says, regardless of what the cancel culture says, regardless of what the whole world says, because we're not the rest of the world. We're the United States of America, and God bless all the good people that live in the rest of the world. We don't want to be like other countries. And we didn't want to be like other countries in 1776, and we still don't right now. And this is still my country too, and this is still your country. And with this election, this sham, it makes me realize we're not in unprecedented times at all. So after watching my friend's video, and I do suggest you go watch it, Tap, Rack, and Roll channel. She's a good friend of mine, and she does a really good job. She goes through all of the stuff, just how rigged everything indeed was. What I did is I looked back in history, and I went back, and there's a book called Common Sense. And it is good to have common sense, and I did read some of this. I also went back to the good old tried and true, the Declaration of Independence, and I'm going to read from this in a few minutes. And then I looked at the news today, and I'm going to share some of this with you right now and correlate this and this pandemic, this flu, this Kung flu, this China virus. You can call it whatever you want, but clearly, Joe Biden did not win the presidency. And I hate to tell you guys this, but neither did Donald Trump. Clearly, this plague, this flu, this virus is now the ruler of the world and the ruler of these United States. And they're trying to trick us into thinking that there's no such thing as independence. There's no such thing as good men conquering evil when people are sick, and I'm going to prove that wrong. in just a minute. But before I do, let's go take a look at some of the news today. And I'm going to bring up two fake news sites. One of them is going to be fake news, and one of them is going to be very fake news. But I repeat myself. So this is coming from Fox News, which I now consider to be mostly fake news. And it says, PA court rejects Trump camp's effort to block 9,000 absentee ballots after Election Day. Because we've known for a while this has been rigged. But we thought to ourselves, well, the courts will save us. The courts are supposed to follow the Constitution. Well, let's see what the court said here today. A Pennsylvania federal appeals court rejected the Trump's campaign attempts to block more than 9,000 absentee ballots that arrived after Election Day. Now, Election Day isn't just something that the news makes up. The Associated Press doesn't determine presidential winners, and they also don't determine Election Day. Election Day is prescribed, rather detailed in the Constitution of the United States of America. It's not a matter of opinion. It was written on the parchment, and it is what it is. However, the Supreme Court had ruled in October that the state could extend its deadline to receive mail-in ballots by up to 3 days after Election Day, as long as they were postmarked on or before November 3rd. Now, I disagree with that ruling because the votes have to be in on Election Day. Now, they say, well, the mail was slow, blah, blah, blah. Whoop-de-doo. When Paul Revere made his midnight ride saying the redcoats are coming because they were coming to confiscate our guns, he made it in time, didn't he? People voted back then. They would have to leave weeks in advance, sometimes months in advance, to travel and walk. And Washington was able to cross the Delaware in the middle of the winter without even proper boots and socks. But this country's much weaker than it was in 1776. And this country's become so weak, I'm afraid it deserves the Marxism and communism that it is now becoming. But I digress. Let me go on. The Supreme Court. So it goes on to say 3 judges rejected a string of the campaign's lawsuits, which tried to block a total of 9,000 mail-in ballots Friday. They noted the vast disruption and unprecedented challenges facing the nation during the COVID-19 pandemic as they upheld the extension. Chief U.S. Circuit Judge D. Brooks Smith said the panel kept in mind a proposition indisputable in our democratic process, that the lawfully cast vote of every citizen must count, except for it's not a lawfully cast vote, as prescribed by the United States Constitution, if it does not get there by Election Day. And these did not get there by Election Day. And I would note that not only is Fox News fake news, but that this Circuit Court of Appeals, this panel, they're either lying or they're just repeating things that just ain't true, because they said that this is an unprecedented sickness, meaning it's never happened before. Nobody's ever gotten sick. There was never a pandemic or an epidemic, so they'd like you to believe. It says they noted the vast disruption and unprecedented challenges facing the nation. Well, precedence is a derivative of precede. Precede means it came before, so they're saying never before 2020 has anything like this ever happened before. And they rejected the Trump campaign's lawsuit and said, nope, we're not going to strike it down. It doesn't violate the Constitution because the Constitution was only written for a warm, sunny July day. Darling, you want to go for a picnic? It's a warm, sunny July day. Well, yes, because we're in the land of the free and home of the brave. Oh, a storm cloud's running. You better hide in your bunker because our rights end as soon as there's dark days. Imagine how much it's going to end during this dark winter that Joe Biden has promised. When he becomes elected or instilled otherwise in office, he may actually be put into office without actually winning an honest election. And that seems to probably be the case, just to let you guys know. Looking at what the Court of Appeals in Pennsylvania and many other states have said, due to unprecedented things, but I'm going to prove that wrong in 2 minutes because I'm going to nobody on a little YouTube channel with less than 1,000 subscribers. I don't have a law degree. I have an associate's degree from a community college, and I cut grass for a living. But somehow I'm aware of things that happened in our history that these circuit judges, these high judges, this is a panel, weren't aware of. So let's look at this. They noted the vast disruption and unprecedented challenges. Let's look no further to the mid-1770s, because around the time of 1775, going until about 1792, there was a huge epidemic in North America. And it was the smallpox revolution. The American Revolution took place during the worst smallpox epidemic in North American history, between 80,000 and 100,000 people perishing from the disease. Now, 80 to 100,000 people in North America back then. Look at the population of North America then compared to now. They're right. This China virus is unprecedented because it's probably 100-fold weaker and less consequential than the epidemic that was going on in North America in 1776, when this document that I'm going to read from in a minute was so eloquently written. 80 to 100,000 people perishing. Many tried avoiding the worst form of it by submitting to variolation. Basically, they get themselves sick, hoping that they just get a mild version of it. Captain John Parker, the American militia officer who led colonial forces at Lexington. Remember, I said after Paul Revere's ride, there was places called Lexington and Concord. This is when they finally said, you know what? We're done trying to negotiate peacefully with the king and the crown. It's time to fire shots. And they did. And they signed what would have been their death sentences if they would have lost, but they didn't lose, despite an epidemic that is so much worse than what's going on right now that you probably couldn't even quantify it. I probably lied to you and exaggerated when I said this was only 100 times worse. It was actually probably a lot worse than that if you did the math. Who led colonial forces at Lexington was seriously ill from tuberculosis when the fighting erupted. Parker did not participate in any other battles and died only a few months later. The first print run of Common Sense, and I recommend that you read this if you haven't, by Thomas Paine. It's a pamphlet, a lot of knowledge and wisdom in here. A lot of knowledge and wisdom that the courts and our politicians could use today, but they're either ignorant or they just don't know what they don't know. But I repeat myself. It says, it made a healthy profit. Paine saw none of it. However, as the pamphlet's original publisher, Robert Bell kept the proceedings. So good people were getting screwed even back then. But later on, he gave away, a lot of the money and gave it back to the Continental Army. So this was a true patriot, Thomas Paine. It says George Washington. You guys ever heard of George Washington? Well, if you go to public schools from here on out, you probably won't, because all of his monuments and statues were torn down, or much of them were this year, by radical Marxists. They call them Antifa, BLM, and other things. But as long as we remember him, his name was George Washington. He was kind of a big deal, if you know what I mean. The first president of the United States and the general of the army, the new army that was formed in the American Revolution. He said he was plagued with ill health for most of his life. At different times, Washington suffered from malaria, dysentery, smallpox, and various types of fever. He was also plagued with bad teeth. But when our current president was in the hospital for like 2 or 3 days and was walking around within hours, there were a lot of calls by the news and the very, very fake news to remove him from office. They said the 25th Amendment. I wonder how General George Washington would have fared if he would have faced the fake news and indoctrination and all the weak people that we have today. But no, he just did things like led troops across the Delaware and won in an army that had him outgunned probably 10,000 to 1, while suffering from just minor little things like malaria, dysentery, smallpox, fevers. I mean, What's the big deal when we have the Kung flu, the China virus, right? Now, I would also note it doesn't show it here specifically in this article, but smallpox had a mortality rate of about 60% when the one that turned this election upside down and made new rules that were completely unconstitutional and unfair that allowed for this complete new normal that they call it now. This has a mortality rate of generally on the low end 98%, but the vast majority of those people that die actually have already outlived the normal life expectancy. And when you get to people that are under 50 years old, it's like 99.98% survival rate. Whereas smallpox, roughly half the people that contracted it at the time of our American Revolution died, regardless of what age they were. So when we hear them rejecting Trump's lawsuit based on that, yeah, of course we can let votes come in after the election date, even though the election date is prescribed in the Constitution very specifically. They say it was because of unprecedented times of epidemic. And nothing I'm saying here tonight is to make light of people getting sick, because people are getting sick now. But there was an epidemic that was probably 30 to 50 times more deadly throughout all of the age groups at the time of our American Revolution. And we were able to get that done. And we were able to start writing a constitution that ended up becoming published in 1791. Now, this pandemic in North America was going on during this whole time. We were able to write a constitution. We were able to beat the British Army with a bunch of peasants and write a constitution and write this Declaration of Independence and the Bill of Rights. This was all done and written during a disease that was probably 30 to 50 to 100 times more deadly. Just extrapolate the numbers. If 80 to 100,000 people died with the population of North America in the late 1700s compared to the death tolls now, it probably doesn't even compare, does it? But then we have courts throwing out lawsuits saying we don't need to follow the Constitution because we're in unprecedented times. Although I would note I don't see anything anywhere in the Constitution that gives exceptions, saying that we have these rights that are natural and unalienable unless somebody gets sick. Now, I just got done saying that this current sickness is much less deadly than the plague that was inflicted upon North America at the time of the Revolution. But even if it was just as bad, they knew. The notion that they're trying to brainwash you to think right now that the founding fathers could not have possibly conceived this China virus is a complete lie, like literally a 100% lie, because there was a plague going on before, at, during, and after the revolution in the writings of our founding documents, and it was called smallpox. And it was very, very deadly, and people of all age groups were affected by it, and many of them died. So I'm going to go on to one more here. 1 second. I'm getting used to some of the features of this software, and I do know you're here, and I definitely recommend that you go over to her channel. And if you could do me a favor, please, hold on 1 second, guys. Tap, rack, and roll. There you are. If you could put a link for everyone to that video you just did that I referenced, that'd be awesome, because it's a great video, and I think people would really enjoy it. So if you get a chance, I appreciate it. So we've had the Circuit Court of Appeals say, nope, these are unprecedented times because people got sick. And nobody's ever been sick in the United States before, and the founding fathers could have never imagined this. So we'll just change election day and let votes come in 3 days late. What's the big deal, right? Okay, it goes on to say that there were, you guys know a lot of this stuff already. I just wanted to put into context. That's not to mention there were the late votes, all of the votes where there were irregularities, software errors, incomplete ballots, ballots that were not signed, ballots that didn't have the voters' information typed in the top, but yet handwritten, and things that you would just think were obvious that they could never accept, right? Here's another one. Of the 9,300 total ballots the Trump campaign sought to block, 8,329 with defects on outer mailing envelopes still could be accepted. Pennsylvania Judge James Crumlish ruled on Friday. Judge Richard Haas also ruled Friday that 592 ballots with missing information, such as hand-printed names and addresses, could also be accepted. So these judges are literally just going, everything that doesn't matter what the Constitution says, it doesn't matter what election laws say, all of that gets suspended. All of that is null and void when there's some type of epidemic or pandemic or otherwise people getting sick. And they want to lead you to believe that this has never happened before, because that's what unprecedented means, except for it has, but it was much worse. Did you guys know that? That this Revolutionary War was actually fought, and all these founding documents were written during this North American smallpox epidemic, in which a vast, vast percentage of colonists and would-be Americans would perish from this earth. And that the great General George Washington was dealing with very, very, very serious diseases such as malaria, dysentery, smallpox, various types of fever, as well as bad teeth while fighting. And that the Captain John Parker, which is a high-ranking military officer, obviously, in the American militia, who led the colonial force at Lexington, was so ill that that was the last fight that he fought in, and then he died. Just think, we can't even get a vote right. We can't even get people's right to vote upheld because of something that has less than 2% mortality rate, but most of those people, again, had already lived past the average life expectancy. But that doesn't make light of those deaths. Every day is a gift from God, and you don't want anybody to go, no matter how old they are. So it's not that I'm being inconsiderate to this current plague. It's just that we had one that was much, much, much worse. And around and before 1776, but these judges don't care, and they're trying to tell us that this is unprecedented. And it's never happened before. Yep. Ballots 2 to 3 days late and only marked for Biden. Nothing to see here. No, and to prove there was nothing to see here. Sorry, guys, my throat's dry. They put the cardboard up over the windows in Detroit just to prove there was nothing to see. All right, so that was me reading from the fake news. Now let's go to the very fake news. Let's see what CNN has to say about this. And then I'm going to read something that's a little better news after that. All right, looks like I've got that up there. It says, Trump had a very bad day in court with his election cases. They're headed for more action next week. And this was November 14th. CNN legal experts have been saying for a week now that President Trump's court case to throw out ballots and turn this election loss were bound to fail. Okay. In one day, 9 cases meant to attack President-elect Joe Biden's win in key states were denied or dropped, adding up to a brutal series of losses for the president, who's already lost and refuses to let go, according to CNN. Many of the cases are built upon a foundational idea that absentee voting and slight mismanagement of elections invite widespread fraud, which has not proven, and state leaders have overwhelmingly said did not happen in 2020, according to CNN. Okay, here's their bullet points. The Trump campaign lost 6 cases in Montgomery County and Philadelphia County in Pennsylvania over whether almost 9,000 absentee ballots could be thrown out. And that's the one that Fox reported on that I just read. The Trump campaign dropped a lawsuit in Arizona seeking a review by hand of all ballots because Biden's win wouldn't change, according to CNN. A Republican candidate and voters in Pennsylvania lost a case over absentee ballots that arrived after Election Day because they didn't have the ability to sue. A case addressing similar issue is still waiting on decisions from the Supreme Court, which has remained noticeably silent on election disputes since before Election Day. And I would agree with CNN on the one thing. The Supreme Court has been noticeably very silent. Poll watchers in Michigan lost their case to stop the certification of votes in Detroit, and a judge rejected their allegations of fraud. Oh, I guess the videotapes of all the coolers in the middle of the night. We went to bed. Trump was up by a couple 100,000 votes, and then 138,000 votes came in for Biden at 4 a.m. in the middle of the night when they supposedly had closed the poll counting place for the night. And then after those 138,000 votes, in which every single one was for Biden and none were for Trump, then they just kept piling in after that. But when the poll watchers, which they legally are entitled to be in there watching, challenging discrepancies that they see, reviewing the process, we're supposed to have open and fair elections. You ever hear that saying, open and fair elections? Open meaning open to the public to watch, to challenge. But then they put paper over the windows and said, nothing to see here. Nothing to see here. It's perfectly normal. Perfectly normal that one candidate got 138,000 votes to 0 in the middle of the night. Why? Well, pandemic. Unprecedented pandemic that never happened before. Because with all their fancy law degrees, they never apparently were aware of this epidemic of smallpox that was happening during some of the most important votes, like how to write our Constitution, what our Bill of Rights should be, how we would declare our independence from a king, the most powerful leader in the world. But don't worry, nothing to see here. And apparently the courts agree. And then they're going to bash Trump for a little bit because this is CNN. That's what they do. They're talking about blocking evidence, on and on. You guys have probably read a lot of this. I don't want to bore you about the details. The purpose of this video is basically this. They're throwing these cases out saying the way the Constitution prescribed elections to go, the date that they were supposed to happen, the election laws that were made in all of the different states, the way they prescribed that they were supposed to be open, transparent, poll watchers, that no doubt there's proof and evidence that did not happen in many states, many of these important swing states. The courts are now deciding one after another that that doesn't matter because there's an unprecedented pandemic afoot. And I hate to accuse people that are strangers of being out and out liars, so I'm just going to say this one more time. They're either liars or they just say things that are simply not true. And there's another thing that's interesting in the 1770s, 80s, and 90s. Not only was there a pandemic that was much worse than the one that's going on right now, right? Okay. There was also a lot of things that we're complaining about going on right now. And because of that, they tried to do peaceful redress of grievances. They tried to do treaties. They tried to write letters. They tried to do so many peaceful things. And when it came time that they couldn't, they wrote this, and I would know if this was right at the surge of the smallpox epidemic. This is called the Declaration of Independence. And it was written when people were getting really sick. It was getting written when many people died. About 40% of the people that caught it died. That's a pretty high mortality rate, much higher than anything that I've seen in a long time, much higher than what this sickness is. It's going right now. And this is basically the framework of what a country's supposed to be, what the purpose of a country is. That's the what. And then the why. The why did they need to form this new country? What was the king doing so bad? Well, they list the whole reason. So I'm going to read the intro here, and I'm also going to list the reasons that they cite that the king was violating them of their natural rights. And it's kind of crazy because some of them aren't going to be germane to right now. But I thought it was kind of nuts when I was reading this. I've read this a bunch of times, but you read something different, you know, in different contexts after reading these court hearings saying that these decisions, rather, by the courts saying, well, we're in unprecedented times. So we had to go around the Constitution, right? And the pandemic is not unprecedented. And anyone that says that it is, anyone that says different is just lying to you, or they're just faithlessly repeating this brainwashing. Look up the epidemic of North America in the late 1700s, which would have included a very important date. And that date was July 4th, 1776. And let me share this for you guys real quick on the screen. And Thomas Teak is correct. Only the legislators can change the laws on voting. That is in the Constitution. So who changed it? Who changed the date? Counting votes. Well, the courts did, because they said this is an unprecedented pandemic. This never happened before. Even though it's like 50 to 100 to 1,000 times less worse than the smallpox pandemic of when this country was formed. But you're right, Thomas. I agree with you. Apparently, with all their law degrees, they've failed to read common sense, and they failed to do a quick little reading of history where they would know that this is not unprecedented whatsoever. Somehow people have been convinced. Have you guys thought about it that way? People have been convinced that we've never been sick before. Can you believe that? Can you believe that? I mean, there wasn't pandemics during the Biden administration with Obama, was there? No. The person that was ahead of the pandemic didn't even say that Biden actually did a terrible job and they completely dropped the ball on it. Oh, that didn't happen either. No, this is the first time, and don't forget it. And this is why I'm suggesting that you go watch her video, Tap, Rack, and Roll, because she did a good job talking about the DVS, Dominion Voting System, DVS. Yeah, watch the video. You'll know what I'm talking about. Many of you probably did, and you already know what I'm talking about. So let me get over here. Open up this tab. All right, this is called the Declaration of Independence. And it says, in Congress, July 4th, 1776, the unanimous declaration of the 13 United States of America, when, in the course of human events, it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and of nature's God entitle them, a decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to the separation. So they're stating, we should list the reasons why. And they continue, we hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed, that whenever any form of government becomes destructive to these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it, and to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. Prudence indeed will dictate that governments long established should not be changed for light and transient causes, and accordingly all experience hath shown that mankind are more disposed to suffer what evils are sufferable than to right themselves by abolishing the form to which they are accustomed. But when a long train of abuses and usurpations, pursuing invariably the same object, evinces a design to reduce them underneath absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government and to provide new guards for their future security. Such has been the patient sufferance of these colonies, and such is now the necessity which constrains them to alter their former systems of government. The history of the present King of Great Britain is a history of repeated injuries and usurpations, all having in direct object the establishment of an absolute tyranny over these states. To prove this, Let facts be submitted in a candid word. These are all the reasons why they declare their independence from the king. He has refused to assent to laws, the most wholesome and necessary for the public good. He has forbidden his governors to pass laws of immediate and pressing importance, suspended in their operation till his assent should be obtained. And when so suspended, he has utterly neglected to attend to them. He has refused to pass other laws for the accommodation of large districts of people, unless those people would relinquish the right of representation in the legislature, a right inestimable to them and formidable to tyrants only. He has called together legislative bodies at places unusual, uncomfortable, and distant from the depository of their public record for the sole purpose of fatiguing them into compliance with his measures. We actually have a lot of that today. Secret committee meetings, secret government meetings, secret court hearings that the public just isn't allowed to know about because they're just too classified. He has dissolved representative houses repeatedly for opposing, with manly firmness, his invasions on the rights of the people. Thought I heard the Democrats saying they want to add more states to stack the Senate even more. That's in the year 2020. He has refused for a long time, after such dissolutions, to cause others to be elected, whereby the legislative powers incapable of annihilation have returned to the people at large for their exercise, the state remaining in the meantime exposed to all the dangers of invasion from without and convulsions within. He has refused for a long time to cause others to be elected. So it kind of reminds me of a little bit that's going on right now. He has endeavored to prevent the population of these states for that purpose, obstructing the laws for naturalization of foreigners, refusing to pass others to encourage their migrations hither, and raising the conditions of new appropriations of lands. He has obstructed the administration of justice by refusing to assent to laws for establishing judiciary powers. He has made judges dependent on his will alone for the tenure of their office and the amount and payment of their salaries. That's interesting when I've heard the Senate Minority Leader talking about stacking the courts. If the courts don't decide in certain ways, they've threatened to stack them to where their vote would be diluted down so much. He has erected, this is one right now. Think about this, with the ATF talking about how they want to weigh the pistols now and decide whether they can be imported or not, and where the grip is and what side the magazine is, and that they want to get rid of an arm brace that was designed with the intent for disabled veterans. Just think about all of this stuff that we're talking about right now, that even if Trump stays in office, probably will happen with the ATF, but if Biden does somehow get installed into office, will also happen along with 100 other things. Think of the ATF right now and all of the arbitrary rulings that they make and that we actually have pending right now. And then listen to this next sentence. He has erected a multitude of new offices and sent hither swarms of officers to harass our people and eat out their substance. The ATF's like 40 years old at the most? This is a rather new office. How many offices have been established just in the last 40, 50 years? So many I couldn't even count. I don't even think we know of all of the offices and bureaucrats that are around. This is going to be kind of a crazy one. This is one of the reasons they broke away from Great Britain. Think about this with how our country's set up today. The next one's very interesting. He has kept among us in times of peace standing armies without the consent of our legislatures. They didn't want to have a standing army in times of peace. Interesting, isn't it? Some of you guys may or may not have opinions on that. He has affected to render the military independent of and superior to civil power. We've seen that happen right here within the Trump administration. Because our militaries are supposed to be, our commander-in-chief, okay, is a civilian. Civilians are supposed to oversee our military. Right? He just had to fire somebody just a couple days ago, Esper, because he was refusing to take orders from the commander-in-chief who's a civilian. We've seen a little bit of that going on just in the last couple of years, haven't we? Where the military's tried to say, nah, we won't listen to you, Mr. President, and they've had to fire him. This was a big, big worry back then that the military would be independent of and become superior to civilians. And that's not the way it's supposed to work in this country. The civilians are always supposed to be superior, right? The civilians are always superior to the military, as such with the commander-in-chief being a civilian. And our president is a civilian. And that's what makes us different from many, many countries. He has combined with others to subject us to a jurisdiction foreign to our Constitution and unacknowledged by our laws, giving his assent to their acts of pretended legislation. That reminds me of like that UN arms treaty that the Biden-Obama administration signed, and luckily it wasn't ratified by the Senate, because if it was, we would be underneath foreign jurisdictions. That's what, and there's many treaties like that. Paris Climate Accord, many things that President Trump actually removed us from. The Obama administration, and no doubt if it were to get instilled in power, that the Biden administration would also do. It's kind of scary. For quartering large bodies of armed troops among us, for protecting them by a mock trial from punishment for any murders which they should commit on the inhabitants of these states, for cutting off our trade with all parts of the world. I was just talking about that last night, the executive orders from Obama, Clinton, and others, where they just cut off trade. It just so happened to be guns and ammunition that they choose to cut off. But yeah, we've seen that happen a lot, and I think we'll see that happen a lot more, especially when it comes to small arms and ammunition, if Biden were to get instilled into office. For imposing taxes on us without our consent. Well, look not any further to the gun control policies of the Biden administration, where they want to tax all assault weapons and large capacity magazines, their words not mine, $200. So your Taurus G2C comes with two 12-round mags. That'd be $600 in taxes. So I said, I started reading this again. I'm like, man, this sounds a lot like what's going on right now. For imposing taxes on us without our consent, for depriving us, in many cases, of the benefits of a trial by jury. That's red flag laws. Take guns first, then due process. See, they were worried about things like that in 1776, and we should be more worried than ever right now in 2020. For transporting us beyond seas to be tried for pretended offenses, for abolishing the free system of English laws in a neighboring province, establishing therein an arbitrary government, and enlarging its boundaries so as to render it at once an example and fit instrument for introducing the same absolute rule into these colonies. And I think we see lots of arbitrary globalism today. That's also very relevant. For taking away our charters, abolishing our most valuable laws, and altering fundamentally the forms of our governments. And the fact that they're now saying votes can come in 3 days late and the judges are saying that's not a problem. I don't know. Altering fundamentally the forms of our government. For suspending our own legislatures and declaring themselves invested with power to legislate for us in all cases whatsoever. He has abdicated government here by declaring us out of his protection and waging war against us. He has plundered our seas, ravaged our coasts, burnt our towns, and destroyed the lives of our people. And we've seen nothing other than our towns burned, destroyed, and ravaged since this spring. And now, just as much as ever, they continue to ravage, burn, and pillage. And it doesn't seem like the law in most cases is even thinking about stopping it. This was in 1776, and they were a lot more sick then than we are now. A lot bigger plague going on. He is at this time transporting large armies of foreign mercenaries to complete the works of death, desolation, and tyranny, already begun with circumstances of cruelty and perfidy scarcely paralleled in the most barbarous ages, and totally unworthy the head of a civilized nation. And that's interesting too when we see different movements of UN troops and things like that in the United States and other countries. Large armies of foreign mercenaries. He has constrained our fellow citizens, taken captive on the high seas, to bear arms against their country, to become the executioners of their friends and brethren, or to fall themselves by their hands. Hey man, nothing personal. I'm just following orders. We just need to take your guns first, and then maybe later we'll give you a court date. Just following orders. Sounds like back then they were concerned with that too, where people were just following orders. He has excited domestic insurrections amongst us. Oh, really? Like burning down cities for the past 6 months? He has excited domestic insurrections among us and has endeavored to bring on the inhabitants of our frontiers, the merciless Indian savages, whose known rule of warfare is an undistinguished destruction of all ages, sexes, and conditions. I see people that look very savage in the streets today amongst us. Domestic insurrections, it says. In every stage of these oppressions, we have petitioned for redress in the most humble terms. Our repeated petitions have been answered only by repeated injury. A prince whose character is thus marked by every act which may defy a tyrant is unfit to be the ruler of a free people. Nor have we been wanting in attentions to our British brethren. We have warned them from time to time of attempts by their legislatures to extend an unwarrantable jurisdiction over us. We have reminded them of the circumstances of our emigration and settlements here. We have appealed to their native justice and magnanimity, and we have conjured them by the ties of our common kindred to disavow these usurpations, which would inevitably interrupt our connections and correspondence. They too have been deaf to the voice of justice and to consanguinity. We must, therefore, acquiesce in the necessity which denounces our separation and hold them, as we hold the rest of mankind, enemies in war, in peace friends. We, therefore, the representatives of the United States of America in General Congress, assembled, appealing to the Supreme Judge of the world for the rectitude of our intentions, do, in the name and by authority of the good people of these colonies, solemnly publish and declare that these united colonies are, and of right ought to be free and independent states, that they have absolved from all the allegiances to the British Crown, and that all political connection between them and the state of Great Britain is and ought to be totally dissolved, and that as a free and independent state, they have full power to levy war, conclude peace, contract alliances, establish commerce, and do all other acts and things which independent states may of right do. And for the support of this declaration, with a firm reliance on the protection of divine providence, we mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. This is where I said they were signing their own death sentence, and I'll just scroll here for 1 second. You look at all the people that signed this document. This was considered to be treason. This was considered to be blasphemy. This was not quote-unquote legal under the King's rule, but they did it anyways. And General George Washington, with malaria, with flu, with smallpox, with all the things he had, still led the Continental Army and defeated the largest military superpower of the world at that time. And in 2020, we have judges, appeals judges, high-ranking panels of judges saying that. But it doesn't matter what the Constitution says. We're under unprecedented times with a pandemic, with a sickness. And I noticed YouTube's already flagged this video with some kind of fake news or whatever thing underneath. And it's probably not considered to be proper to be reading a document like this called the Declaration of Independence, because truth is treason in the empire of lies. And there's probably people right here, right now in the year 2020, after we fought so hard 240 years ago, there's probably people right now that would say that anyone who were to dare read this and actually believe what it says and actually appreciate the beauty of this document, that they would probably want to actually consider you to be undesirable, that you should be canceled, that you should be a criminal, that you should be an enemy of the state, for simply reading the document that actually gives them the right to say that. Isn't that kind of ironic? Ironic and unfortunate. So, what do we do when they say, well, we're too sick? The founding fathers could have never, ever imagined people getting sick. I mean, the life expectancy is only twice as long now as it was back then. The mortality rate's only about 30 to 50,000 times, worse for the smallpox than it is this China plague, depending on the age groups, of course. Because smallpox killed babies, young children. This current China plague virtually kills no babies and small children. I don't know. What do you guys think? Why is it that we have people that are voted in these assemblies, these legislators, and then they vote on, confirm, some are appointed by the president, right? Federal judges are appointed by the president, are they not? And these people literally say, I'm going to go back to the Fox News quote. For those of you that are just joining me, let me go back up here. And they're telling us why they were able to do it. And they said that, we don't have to worry about these ballots that came in after Election Day. Not a big deal. 3 judges rejected a string of campaign lawsuits which tried to block a total of 9,300 mail-in ballots. They noted the vast disruption and unprecedented challenges facing the nation during the COVID-19 pandemic. As they upheld the extension, every legal vote should count. Of course, every legal vote should count. You don't have to vote like me. You could have voted the opposite person that I voted for on everything, and as long as you legally did it, God bless you, your vote should count. Not more than mine, but 100% equal. But notice what I said, every legal vote. It just so happens to be that votes that are voted on after Election Day are illegal votes, because the Constitution is supposed to be the law of the land, and it clearly states that legislators make election rules. And the election laws of Pennsylvania, put in by its legislators, as prescribed by the United States Constitution, said that all votes had to be in by voting day. What if Paul Revere would have said, they're coming for our guns, they're coming for our ammunition. They're coming for the ammunition, boys, but here's the problem. When I'm riding on my horse to get to Lexington, there's a disease, there's a vermin, and I could die on my way there. Well, I guess in the year 2020, he would have said, well, not a big deal. I'll just wait 3 days before I make that famous midnight ride. And luckily, he wasn't as weak as a lot of Americans are today, or he would have been 3 days too late. And they would have confiscated our ammo. And then this document, instead of this being the victory speech, this would have been the death sentence. And all these people would have died, and none of us would probably be Americans today. So where are we at? What do you guys think? I'm not smart enough to give you any answers. I just wanted to go back and give you some historical context that the news will not give you. We keep hearing these things like unprecedented. The nation's never had to face anything like this before. Oh, really? How did we vote in World War II? How did we vote in World War I when there was the Spanish flu? How did we vote? Isn't that interesting? How did this Continental Army, that was a very brave army and it was a very well-trained army, I'm not making light of it at all, but it was practically nothing compared to the Navy that had to fight off. The British Armada, the Navy, whew, pretty scary stuff. And they noted right in here all their reasons, but what do? We just keep on writing our congressmen. I'm ticked off. You need to save us. And then we say, but the courts will protect us. The courts. The same courts that say, don't worry about the law. It doesn't matter. People are getting sick. No one's ever had this happen before. Maybe we thought President Trump would save us. He did a lot of things that I liked. He did some things I didn't like, just to be fair. But I don't know how we could have really ever expected him to save us either, because really, this document, the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, there's two ways to look at them. You can look at them at face value. That you can say, well, they're a piece of paper. Well, a piece of paper, what does that literally do? Would a piece of paper stop a bullet? If there was an intruder that tried to come in right now to where I'm at, would I say, halt, this piece of paper stops you. It is illegal to do this. And I would just hold up that piece of paper and they would just turn around and go home and go to bed and say, I can't do anything to that guy. He held up a piece of paper in front of me. Of course not. Obviously not. So in a sense, while these are beautiful documents, they were just words quilled down on a piece of paper by a parchment. And the paper is very important. I would never make light of these documents. They're preserved in our national archives, and I hope they're preserved for eternity so people can still read these words. But it doesn't say in this here that this new government, that George Washington would give you these rights. It doesn't say that at all. It doesn't say that at all. In fact, it says the opposite. It says we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator. So this piece of paper didn't give them anything in the form of government with good reason, and there's 2 pages of reasoning why they were going to form it. It never said that because of all this, that the government, no. Endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that amongst these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Now, here's the next sentence. It's very, very important, and I know you guys have read this, but I think we should think about it in times like this when the judges are letting us down, the legislatures are letting us down. And this is back to what I was getting at earlier. It doesn't say that this piece of paper is going to secure these rights that were given to you by your Creator. These are natural rights. These are God-given rights. Whatever you worship, whatever you believe brought you to this earth, that's what gave it to you. And they're acknowledging that. They didn't give it to you. They're just acknowledging it. Now, did it say, to secure these rights, we will have a piece of paper, and the piece of paper alone will keep those rights here forever? Is that what this document said? Because a piece of paper, again, what's it really going to do? No, they thought ahead. They said that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. So it tells you right there. Our Creator gave us these rights, not limited to, obviously, including life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and many other things. That was given to us, right? And it doesn't say to, restrict us, to make rules for us. No, it says to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men. They're saying the only reason government was formed, was to secure our rights that include life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and many others. But who is the government? Is the government a circuit court of appeals judges? Is the government Joe Biden? Is it Donald Trump? No, it's not. It clearly states are instituted among men, deriving their powers from the consent of the governed. So the only powers they have is from our consent, of our consent. So it's our consent, the regular peons like me and you, that are responsible for securing our rights, including life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. It says it right here. So I guess for all of you that are disappointed, and I am too, that a certain circuit court of appeals is letting us down, Is it really the Circuit Court of Appeals that let us down? Or is it the men, the people, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed? Is it that we stopped giving them consent a long time ago? Is that what happened? Is it basically we don't consent for them to do this, but they're just doing it anyways? I think maybe. But here's the thing. What do we do then? What do we do? The founding fathers, they're so antiquated. They're so antiquated. They knew nothing, right? How could they ever expected government to go against the people? So we're just screwed, right? Well, maybe. But actually, they did think about that. So it says deriving their powers from the consent of the governed, that whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends. Really? They actually thought of that possibility? I thought these judges said this was all unprecedented. This is an interesting document. I recommend everybody read it. It is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it. Did they just say it's our right to take down the government? Well, hold on. Let me read this real quick. That whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it, and to institute new government, laying its foundation on principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. But then they tell us, and I think this might be what's going on right now. I think this is exactly what's going on right now, if you ask me. And I'd be eager to read what you guys have to say about it. Because I'm obviously don't have a fancy law degree. I'm not presiding over whole districts of the United States. But I do know there was an epidemic in 1776 that's much worse than this China plague that we have now. So it says here, so why would people be dealing with this? It already says basically that once they become contrary to things like your safety and happiness and your life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, then it's the right of the people to alter or abolish it. Alter or abolish it. Why haven't we altered or abolished? There's no way the founding fathers thought about that. Hold on. They actually did. And I think this explains what's going on right now. Prudence indeed will dictate the government's long established should not be changed for light and transient causes. And I agree with that. I do. I don't think it should just, with the whim, we should just change the government every day. No, I agree with that. But hold on. And accordingly, all experience hath shown that mankind is more disposed to suffer, while evils are sufferable, than to right themselves by abolishing the forms to which they are accustomed. So they're basically saying that as long as it ain't too bad, it's easier just to deal with a little bit of crap than it is to actually do something about it, because it's easier. People are creatures of habit, you know. It's like, well, yeah, okay, I get it. I have to have a permit to carry my gun. It ain't too bad, but I'm used to it. I've been doing it all these years. I suppose I can just keep on doing it a little longer. Yeah. Well, let's see here. They want to take my 12-round magazine, but I guess as long as I can keep 10. And then you'll hear people say this in YouTube comments. Is this really the hill we want to die on? People say that. And it is a good question to ask. I don't know the answers to any of these questions, but it's a good one to ask, isn't it? So they're basically saying that mankind are more disposed to suffer while the evils are sufferable. Rather than to right themselves by abolishing the forms to which they are accustomed. So I guess that's the end of it. People just have to suffer forever. The founding fathers basically said, wow, what? Wait a minute, they didn't? Hold on, but there's more. But when a long train of abuses and usurpations pursuing invariably the same object evinces a design to reduce them under absolute despotism. That's the word right there, despotism. Look it up if you went to a public school. It is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government and to provide new guards for their future security. Well, right now we're still allowed to read that document. I don't know how much longer we will be able to. Not sure that these circuit judges read that. I'm not sure that they were aware of the smallpox epidemic of North America in the 1700s. I don't know. A-Dubs has a quote here from he says, Claire Wolfe said, America is at that awkward stage. It's too late to work within the system, but too early to shoot the bastards. This is a quote. That was in the mid-90s. Are we more free 25 years later? I would say we are probably not more free 25 years later. I would say we have lost more freedom in the last 8 months than we've lost in a very long time. And we have been steadily losing freedoms every day. And even when George Washington had his farewell address, when he left as being the first president, this new country, this experiment on self-governance and of the people, by the people, right? He already said he was, I'm going to misquote him here. This is just paraphrasing. He was already just disgusted and ticked off on how much freedom he had already seen us lose. And that was after he said his farewell speech to leave as the first president of the United States. And he didn't want to remain president. There was no law or amendment at that time that said he had to step down, but he wanted out of there. He said, I'm out of here. And I'm already disgusted how much we've lost just in the last few, the first few years of the country's inception. But they knew that. And that's why they put all this in here. They knew before the country was even founded a lot of things that would happen. Now, what scares me is how much we've seen happen in just the last 7-8 months. Seems inevitable we're heading into a whole rash of nationwide lockdowns again. I saw North Dakota, the liberal state of North Dakota. I didn't think it was a liberal state, but apparently it is. I don't know. You guys know who my governor is, so nothing against the people of North Dakota, but North Dakota has just put in a statewide mask mandate. Whew. I always thought the way out of this was you leave Michigan and you go out to places like North Dakota. I guess I'll go to South Dakota. Kristi Noem's a pretty good shot, too. I was watching her shooting the other day some birds. Pretty good shot. It's crazy, isn't it? Hopefully you guys do click on that link. I don't put a lot of links in my videos, but I do want you guys to follow her link because I thought it was a really good video. And, you know, her and I are really talking about the same types of things in the long run. Just people have a different way of thinking about it. And I sat there and I was like, man, I know it's rigged. I mean, her video talks about how crazy it is. This DVS. Just a coincidence. Just shut up. Don't think about it. Put on your mask. Put on your mask. Go to North Dakota and put on your mask. Shut up. You're dumb. Nobody's ever thought we would have a virus like this in our country. Nobody ever thought we would have a plague. I mean, this is the first virus the world's ever gotten. So we can just throw all the Constitution out the window where it says legislators make laws, which it says that. And then it specifically says state legislators will make voting laws. Very specifically states that. And then you have a 3-judge panel that says, nah. They didn't understand what plague and pandemic were like. Well, the problem is this. The North American smallpox plague was from about 1775 to 1792, which basically encompassed just before this document, during it, all the way up to the complete ratification of the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, the whole foundation, all of it. So when you had something that had like an almost infinitely higher mortality rate than this current China plague, you don't think they knew about that when they were writing it down? Does this 3-judge panel think the Founding Fathers were just so stupid, even though they predicted everything that would happen? And it has. They were so stupid, right? This is what they'd like to make us believe, okay? This is the fake news narrative. That what they really wanted to write in there was state legislators will make election laws unless there's a plague or a virus. Then they won't anymore. No, because they were dealing with a plague while they actually wrote it. So certainly they would have known about it. Certainly they could have written that down. And certainly it was a very intentional fact that they chose not to write that down. Because in fact, you don't see anywhere in the founding documents suspending our rights due to plagues and sicknesses, although they were written only during that time period. Makes no sense whatsoever. Let me say hi to you guys real quick before I get off of here. Can any of you guys make any sense of this? Again, I'm not saying this to be sarcastic. I'm not particularly smart. I just can't help but to notice there was a worse plague than what's going on right now in the late 1700s, and nowhere in any of these beautiful documents does it say unless or except there's a plague, but now these judges are reading that into it. Are you kidding me? I want to go to South Dakota. Tap Rock and Roll says, I love the South Dakota governor. I do. She's a great shot. She's almost as pretty as Tap Rock and Roll herself. And I think taxes are really low there too. And you don't have to wear a mask. So what more? I mean, what do you have to lose? Who wants to go to South Dakota with me? What's happening, Rudy Fenny? How you doing, man? We common folk need to start running these offices. Stop allowing the elitists to dictate and manipulate the law. And I do agree with you. And they are acting as dictators. And they are elitists. I fully agree with you. I'm going to run for president. Anyone want to vote for me? Hey, I told you guys I'd try to lighten it up and crack a joke at the end. Just a little bit. Bastard says all of this will be labeled hate speech and outlawed. Yeah, actually, it will be. The most hateful document of all times. I mean, they've already torn down the statues of most of the people that wrote this. Such hateful human beings. Could you imagine that? How hateful that was? These people were so hateful. They were so hateful, right? That they said all men are created equal. How dare them do that? Could you imagine saying all people are equal? That you're endowed by a creator with certain unalienable rights? Here's the hateful part. Here's the hateful part. Get ready. Plug your children's ears. Bastard. Plug your dog's ears. It's a good dog. It doesn't deserve to hear this kind of hate. The most hateful words that have ever been uttered. That amongst these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And they tore down the statues of the people that wrote these words. Almost all of them anyways. Couldn't even believe it. Yeah, this was all supposed to be a warning, and it says, sounds like they are using King George's playbook. Yeah, I know. Like we've said before, 1984 was supposed to be a warning, not a user's manual. Hijabs for All says, looks like they're using King George's playbook as their own, and I would agree with that. Mark Twain's short story, The Curious Republic of Gondor, comes to mind when reflecting on 2020. Yes. Thomas Teak, we have to stand up and fight for what is right, but I do believe these things will come in the last days. They will call good evil and evil good. Yeah. Yeah. You know, those of you that are familiar with the good book know that a lot of this is in there. Don't want to start talking about the book of Revelations this late at night because you might want to be able to go to sleep tonight without a nightmare. Ryan Fixer, what's happening, buddy? How you doing? Slight mismanagement of the election and mostly peaceful demonstrations. CNN trademarks. Isn't that funny when they were talking about the different grievances against the kings, how the cities are pillaged and burning and Nah, it must just be a coincidence. I don't know. There he is, Matt Morrison. How you doing, man? Pretty soon, broadcasts like this will be an enemy of the state. Maybe that's pushing it. But you smell what I'm stepping in? Yeah, and you're actually right. This happened again tonight. I was sitting there. I have one of those little apps that alerts me from my channel. And all of a sudden it went bing. And I said, I looked down, it showed a down arrow. Minus 20 subs. I lost 20 subs in 1 second on my main channel, my other one. I'm like, okay. Then within a few minutes, people are coming in. Hey, man, I was just unsub from your channel. Go read the comments. Seriously, my newest video. This happens every day. They just keep unsubbing you guys from my channels, and then people are like, I was unsubbed. Now, a few people unsub just because they don't like me and they don't like my videos. I don't care about my numbers. It's just I'm just supporting what you're saying. They just literally unsub people and remove people. There was a guy I was in a conversation with going back and forth in the comments, and all of a sudden he went to reply back and saw the subscribe button available again. He's like, dude, they literally unsub me in the midst of us having comments. And if you guys think I'm making it up, go to my other channel in the stream, or not the stream. It's actually my newest picture where I showed a bunch of SKSs. You can literally see the guy talking about it. So there you go, Matt. That's literally what happens. They'll just randomly. The other day it was 100, just boop, 100 all at once. And then throughout the next 3 or 4 days, people are like, WTF, man. I missed your last video. I was unsubbed. Yeah. They're already doing it. Yeah, Michael Walker. I know you're being sarcastic, but I see where you're coming from, man. Why don't we just quit voting and let mainstream media pick the dang winners of the elections? Yeah. I can't argue with him. Can I? I don't know. He's reading from the Declaration. Susan's going to ban. Hi, Susan. I don't know. Here's the problem. They would have got rid of me a long time ago, but Susan basically said, look, I don't like you, but you're kind of likable. It's one of those weird things. I've noticed that on it. People either like me or they hate me. There's not much in between, but I like you guys. I like all of you guys. I appreciate it. My real fake name, A Mighty Fortress is Our God. And that is encouraging for me too, sir. I agree. That is a lot of encouragement. Yeah, Libra, you were ahead of me, man. I said the document needs some force behind it to make it legitimate. Exactly. And I'm behind in the comments like I usually am, but it's all good. The Reptile guys, what's up, man? How you doing? He says, I didn't know you're going to be on tonight. What was a mystery? I told 2 people I was going to be on. Yeah, we got to get out there and take some action. Good to see you. And good to see you, too. I told 2 people I was going to be on tonight, right before I started. They know who they are. I think they're both watching right now. Big D. I got Big D's vote. I got my first endorsement. Yes. 2024, 2028, 2032. Oh, man. I'm just going to look at the comments for 2 more minutes, and then I'm going to get off. Thomas Teague. People like their air conditioning. Going to the grocery store, getting a big steak, watching the football game on TV equals big fat nothing. Thomas is a pretty smart dude. I like you, man. That's a good one. I like this little channel I have here. I can actually sit there and read all you guys' comments. This is cool. I'm going to close down 2-way EDU and start up another one. The smaller, the better. Don't worry. I can just do nothing at all, and Susan will have the other one shut down within probably weeks. So it's all good. Susan said, this is what she told me in a private message. She says, as long as I can see your pretty face somewhere, I'll shut them all down, but I'll still keep you going on at least one so she can fall asleep at night. That's what she told me. If you can believe that or not. It's true. Just ask me. I'll tell you. Rod Brown has good taste, it looks like. Wow, he has really good taste. Look at that car. And tap, rack, and roll, too, I mean, by the way. Hey, Dubs. I wish we would have had the first version. Yes, A-Dub says, first draft was so anti-British and anti-Tory. The others are like, whoa, Tom, pump the brakes. I wish we would have had that one, actually. We might be in a little bit better situation than we are now. Rudy, vote for me. You guys are just saying that. I appreciate it, though. What about you? What would you do? Would you vote for me, tap, rack, and roll? What do you guys think? Joe Saya, how do I say your name, man? I'm going to mess it up. We'll just say Joe. I actually think you have more SKSs than the Chinese army. Yeah, I showed you guys a small portion of my SKSs in that picture because I was talking about them last night. I just wanted to let you guys know in my stream last night when I said I would use the SKS. If you have one, get some X39. And by the way, I noticed AIM surplus right now. I think I can't link it. Don't any of the moderators link it. Susan doesn't like that. But if you go to AIM surplus, they have it for $6.99 a box right now, which is $1 cheaper than I had seen it. So, hey, It's expensive, but if that's what you've got, get that SKS out. Clean off the Cosmoline. Do not be ashamed to own one. They're awesome rifles. I said it last night, and I thought I'd just give you guys a picture to show you. Like, yeah, literally one of my favorite rifles for sure. All right, I'll pay you later, Tap Rack and Roll. I paid her to say that, but I'll pay you after. I don't want to tell them how much I had to pay to get her vote. I mean, it's normal to buy votes, isn't it? This is America. I'm 2AE to you, and I approve this message. Because I cut grass for a living, and your $5 donation will secure all of your rights for the rest of your life. But I don't even have a P.O. box yet, so we'll have to wait for a couple more years before the campaign will start. You were in China? Joe was in China. When I was in China, in Beijing, the square guards had chromed SKSs and Makarovs. And if it wasn't for Susan, I could show you a ceremonial chromed SKS that is... I need to get all my SKSs out. I think I might have showed... I think I did a video showing some of the chromed Yugoslavian ceremonial ones. Yeah, I know, Rod, right? Time to get to the range. Rod's driving. How much ammo can we fit in there? How much ammo can we fit in that car? Let's see if we can bottom it out. Rod's going to come pick me up. We're going to go to the range, and we're going to put 10,000 rounds of ammo in that car he's got and see what we can. Oh, man. Yeah, there's another group of people that cannot sleep until they have done evil. I am not in the closet whatsoever. Let's see here. Vote for 2AEDU. SKS is for everyone. Everyone gets an SKS if they vote for me, and they get 1762 by 39 round. And we're going to win the election because she's going to burn all the other votes tonight at 4:30 a.m., which is awesome. All right, who did I miss tonight? I'm going to see who else I missed. Is anyone else in here that wants to say hi that I might have missed earlier? Because at the beginning, I was reading these crazy documents that you're not supposed to read called the Declaration of Independence. Has anyone read this book? I decided to buy a new copy because my other one was a paperback, but this one's actually really cheap. I just got this other copy recently, and there's a lot of good stuff in it. It's only, 72 pages of small, just little small pages. You can basically fit this in your pocket. It's a nice little book. It actually talks about, people are talking about prepping right now. He's talking about how many bombs, fire ships, the cost for the guns. Like, he's literally going through the whole list of how many ships, how many guns. If you guys are trying to form an arsenal or whatever you want to call it, it's all in there, literally. Why buy votes? Wait a minute, hold on. Orion, she's trying to save me some money. I appreciate it. Why buy votes? Just have Detroit send some over in the cover of the darkness. I'm not too far from Detroit, actually. All right, who wants to meet me over there? We're going to get in Rod Brown's car. It's fast. And we're going to jet right over to Detroit. We're going to go to bed tonight. Joe Biden has won the state of Michigan. When the rest of us come back, Donald Trump has now been reelected, and it still is the 45th president of the United States. That would be awesome, wouldn't it? Well, if that's the case, if you're getting a free rifle, Rudy Finney's voting twice. Well, of course, duh. Do we have a communist in the chat? I think we might. Come forth. Are you a communist? Halt. Who goes there? Show me your papers. Who's wearing a mask while they're watching this right now? That's what I need to know. Raise your hand if you're wearing a mask or you're a communist and you're watching. All right. I think I've said hi to everybody. I had fun. I think I'm going to get off of here. What are we talking about? The QR codes can be ran through repeatedly. So you need. Don't tell him that. Tap Rack. He's going to have my whole collection of SKSs in one night. So if he. Okay, hold on. If he can. The QR codes can be ran through repeatedly. That is true, actually. Okay. So you only need one ballot for 100,000 votes. So you're saying that literally, if he runs it through 100,000 times, he's going to be able to one ballot and he's going to get half of my SKS collection alone. Because 100,000 SKSs would be approximately half of my collection. So, uh-oh. Are you wearing a mask, Big D? You're not a communist, though, right? I said, who's wearing a mask and who's a communist? I'm in the wrong place for that, and that's a good thing. I definitely don't want any of those. You guys don't want any of my communist guns, so don't even vote for me, and you won't get one. What's up, Alan Kunesh? How's it going? What's happening, man? Mama says the mask is the devil. Actually, Mama does say that. I appreciate it. I'll make you my whole picks. You'll be my whole picks. I'll be just like Trump. We were actually talking. Tap Rack and I were a couple weeks back. We're like, what is it with Trump? Like all of his like advisors and inner circle, they're like the prettiest and the smartest women you've ever seen, and like all at the same exact time. We were thinking of like, Kaylee and Hope and a whole list of other ones. So Tap Rack will be my whole picks, and now I just need a Kaylee McEnany. Have I done any more vids on the Galil? Susan? If it wasn't for Susan, see, those of you that have been around a long time, are you still in here, Orion Fixer and Matt Morrison and those kind of guys? I used to do that. That used to be the thing I did on my Friday nights on that other channel. I would literally, like, somebody would say, like, hey, man, what about the Galil? And I'd be like, give me a second. I walk over and get it, but they've changed the rules since then. Big D was just messing with me. Cool. He does have an SKS, though. Ozark said, oh, shucks. I woke up like this. See, he even looks good when he wakes up. We all can't be like Ozark, but yeah. I should. Do you guys want me to do another video on the Galil? Did I do the shooting video? Gosh, I've done so many videos, I can't even remember which ones I've done, to be honest with you. It looks like a lot of you guys are aware of my other channel. You're all requesting all the guns in here. That's funny. Just a hijab. Hey. My neighbor told me Nancy Pelosi wears a mask to hide her wrinkles. Oh, no. She's a beauty. Have you ever seen her lately? Psh. No, I do like communist guns, I have to be honest with you. Former communist, Block, whatever. Yeah, the Hebrew Valmet. If you guys notice, really close in that picture I put up on the other channel, okay? There's a bunch of SKSs lined up. There's random guns down below, right? And then there's like a couple M1 Garands, an M16A1, M14, and an M1 carbine above. So if you look in front of the dresser, you'll see. How do I describe this? So there's the row of SKS as the dresser. Nearest the row, but down like on the lower level, leaning against the dresser, is actually a Norinco Hunter AK. And if you look at those, they've got like the hunting stock on them, but the receiver on those is actually cut like a Valmet. So I don't know if anybody noticed that. I think it's pretty cool. Yes, Orion. Yep, see? I still want you guys to think I'm lying. Here's my witness. It used to be a regular show and tell, and it still would be. When Gizmo Rob TV asked, like literally, dude, if it wasn't for Susan's rules, I would go grab the Galil, because that and the Hebrew Hammer, the Israeli FNFAL, are like 15 feet that way. So, all right, guys, I've been on longer than I thought. Whoa, an hour and a half. You guys need some sleep. Ozark Yemen needs his beauty sleep. He's a good-looking dude, and he needs to sleep. So I'm only going to get off so he can get to bed because it's past his bedtime. He's been doing a great job too, by the way, guys. Seriously. Ozark's been putting out a lot of news. He's been talking about stuff that the mainstream media doesn't want to talk about. I know Susan doesn't want him talking about it either. So, hold on 1 second here. Give me 1 second, guys. I think I know how to do this. It'll be worth your while, okay? I wouldn't waste your time. Now, if you go to my 2A EDU channel, I already have these people recommended, but I'd like you to go over and give him a look. Just give him a look and see what you think. He's just giving regular old-fashioned news stuff. I'd like you to go over there. This link here should work for the Ozark Yemen channel. Okay? And give me 1 more second here. Where's she at? Where's my Hope Hicks at? Hope, where are you? Here she is. Hold on. I think I could be president. I'm already appointing my chiefs of staff. Can you believe this? Hope Hicks, where are you? You can go over to Hope Hicks channel right here. And these are good friends of mine and awesome people. So, all right, guys. Thank you, Alan. I appreciate it, man. I do appreciate the kind words. All right, guys. I'm out of here. Oh, just as I was getting ready to leave. Ooh, coming in the backstretch. Susan Wiki. Told you. Great show tonight. Thanks for the flowers. See? She took away 20 subs tonight, but still had to come in to thank me at the very end. So thank you, Susan. Thank you, everybody else. And hold on. Am I missing somebody else in the comments that has a wonderful channel? If I am, I'm sorry. Remind me. And I definitely will hit you guys up next time. Okay. Gizmo Rob TV. I added you on Patreon a few months ago. Thank you. I appreciate it. Maybe a vid of that Galil one day. I'm looking into a Galil SAR. Send me a message on Patreon and I will yeah, I'll add that video to my list, okay? I can't promise it tomorrow, but I definitely will. I definitely take requests from anybody. And if you're donating to the channel, I'll make sure I get it in there. So I appreciate it, guys. And we'll get Susan Wiki out of there. Go back to Hope Hicks. And with that, thanks for watching. And have a good one. She better not beat me up for calling her Hope Hicks. That's a compliment, right, guys? I think so. I think we're going to be okay.